All right, everybody. Today we're going to do a little bit of a tips and tricks video specifically about working with silicone molds so that you can get the most out of your Mighty Molds purchase. So the biggest factor for getting good looking candles out of silicone molds is heat. Some of the traditional wisdom for candle making doesn't really apply to silicone molds, and for our processes, you want to use higher pouring temperatures, and you also want to prepare the mold before you pour, and then also there are some steps we're going to take after the pour to draw out the cure time and to hopefully produce the best looking candles possible. So your best friend for silicone mold making is a heat gun. Whenever you're making candles out of silicone molds, this is going to be your best friend, whether it's to prep the mold or to clean them after a pour. So I'm going to go ahead and prep this mold. You don't have to get them really hot, but you do want to get even heating all throughout. After one layer combination is done heating, we'll go ahead and get the wicks through, and then we'll put that layer together, and that'll also help preserve the heat and keep it in the mold. Turn it around, expose the next layer, and we'll do the same thing for these two. And again, we'll just get the wicks through the cavities real quick. Some of these are really curly, so they're going to cause me an issue here. But that's alright, we'll get through it. Now, it's a little counterintuitive to pick up the bigger mold to put it back on the smaller one, but that's actually the easiest way to do it because then you're not fighting with the wicks. Press that down. And now we're ready to pour. After one more step. Like I said, we're going to do some extra things on this one now. Because the silicone has drawn in the heat, it will also begin to radiate heat on the inside a little bit, and that's going to make it a lot more prone to leakage. So to protect our workspace from that and just to keep the wax from going everywhere, we're going to actually wrap it in plastic wrap. This is a really good trick you can use, and it will keep it from leaking, but it's also going to act as an insulation for the heat as well. So that's going to allow us to keep the heat in there and draw out the cure time on these candles even more. Now we'll just go ahead and get the wick clips on. Oh, sorry. You will still strap the mold after wrapping it. I always recommend doing this before putting the wick clips on because otherwise it's just too difficult. Again, you don't have to over tighten these straps at all. You just want it to be secure, keep the layers from shifting, and anything more than that you can actually cause more harm than good. Okay, now we will set the wicks, and after that we're also going to employ a hot box for this pour. So we have a foil lined box. And we're going to set the mold in that, and that will even more delay the curing of the candles. But you'll notice we probably will have some extra flashing on the inside just due to the radiation of that heat from the mold. Alright, we're wicked, so we'll get our hot box set up. This is literally just a box bottom that we've lined with foil. And then we have the box top that will go right on top of it. Now the other part of working with silicone molds is wax temperature. And when you're working with jar candles and even plastic or metal molds, it's a little bit different because, you know, certain waxes have very specific pour temperatures. And with silicone molds, the rule of thumb is really the hotter the better. So I have some 100% beeswax just broiling at, you know, probably over 190 degrees at this point. And that's what I'm going to pour at. I'm just going to pour this as hot as I can to make the transition from liquid wax to hard wax take as long as possible. So I'm going to draw off some wax off our melter, and I'll be right back. All right, we've got some blue-black beeswax here, and we're just going to pour this one. Like I said, this is about as hot as we can get the wax. And hotter wax, it does change the viscosity. It is thinner. It can leak easier, and that's also why we use the cellophane. It insulates the mold, but then it also reduces any kind of leakage we might see and keeps all the flashing on the interior of the mold. And you can see the wax level in these cavities isn't dropping, so even though we've taken all the precautions for leakage, they're still not leaking. And that is a good part about these molds, is you do have to kind of do a lot to get them to leak, but they will if you really try to wet them. So that is why this cellophane trick, it's great for heat insulation, but it is also really good for leakage. Well, we've almost got all 8 done here. I'll probably top off any of the ones that are a little bit low. All right, we are poured. I'll get the topper box on top of it. Again, this is a foil lined box that we'll just place right on top of it. And that's really going to do a lot for the curing of those candles and really draw out that curing process. It's surprising, you would not think it, but just putting that box over top of it, lining the interior of it with foil really will do a lot for the finish of your candles. If you want to even go further and produce seamless candles from a 2-part mold, we also have a video available for dipping finished candles that will also help you achieve that. So thank you for watching, and we'll be back soon to unmold these and see just how they turned out. Alright everybody, welcome back, and today we're going to go ahead and unmold the candles we made the other day, and we're going to see how they turned out after we took the extra steps of placing the mold in a hot box, as well as wrapping it for insulation before we poured. Go ahead and remove the box. And I guess the first thing we'll do is get the clips out. We'll go ahead and unstrap. And you can literally just rip that plastic. This come off. Doesn't look like we had any kind of leaking at all, which is really nice. When you heat up the molds, it really can make it a lot easier to leak. Alright, let's see what we have here. We're hoping for some really nice looking candles. And so we did get a little bit more flashing due to the heat, but the candles themselves have come out with a really good finish. And even if we want to do anything else with them, we can always do a post-pour dip to get any seam lines off, or if there are any blemishes. But again, we probably should have done a before and after to compare, but the finish on that candle is hands down better than, let's say, one of these candles, where this is a candle where the mold was not warmed up before it was poured, and you can see there's a lot more blemishes. And these all seem to have come out pretty good. And again, you see that flashing right there, it just comes right off. No issue with that. But these are some very good looking candles. These come out very good. And it literally is just the difference in heating the mold beforehand and putting it in an insulating box for it to cure. Check out the second layer. These came out good as well. And again, they just pop right out, but no real blemishes at all. These are pretty good candles. And again, we do have a video available for dipping seamed candles, and it's a quick process, and it can give you kind of a better looking candle, and it can also increase some burn time a little bit, but it will absolutely knock down those seams and make it to where you have a seamless candle. This has been our tips and tricks video. One last thing we did want to mention is with using very high temperatures for pouring into silicone molds, you may need to adjust your processes if you're using scent in your candles. So if we're scenting a candle, generally what we'll do is we'll get the wax temperature up to where we want it to be. We'll kill the heat because it's going to be very hot, and then we just put the scent in and mix as soon as we can. We mix for maybe a minute. We don't want to lose too much heat, and then we just pour immediately into the mold. So when we're dealing with high temperature wax, we never actually put scent into the wax batch. We always just heat it to the temperature we need to go, and then we'll end up adding the scent after that. But thank you for watching, and feel free to reach out anytime if you have questions about using a mighty mold or silicone molds in general.